She ripped the ticket wallet from my fingers. "Go away, Mother." The paper rasped like sand. The gate kept boarding as if I were air. Eyes flicked toward us, then away, the way people dodge grief at breakfast. Before we continue, subscribe so you don't miss how this turns. I'm Elena Morales, 54, Miami. The Freedom Tower still watches me from the causeway. The PA chimed and flattened the space between us. She tucked the blue sleeve into her tote, fast, like a street trick. Gate D14 glowed on the overhead board, bright as if it could bless whoever stood nearest. The carpet smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. A stroller squeaked behind me and then stopped, curious. I steadied my voice, not my hands. The room steadied back, patient and cold. I had paid the cabin balance in full, $6,000, not counting taxes. The ink on my confirmation hadn't even faded in my purse. Locator code. 3 letters, 3 numbers, stenciled near the corner in a font that wanted to be trusted. She knew where it was. She knew how to reach in, smile, and take. The taking wasn't new. The place was. Airports make everything louder, even whispers. Her mouth curled the way it does when she believes the world owes her softness. I said go. She didn't shout. She didn't have to. The word mother carries a microphone in public. It pulls strangers into a story they didn't buy, but they still watch. It makes you shrink, if you've practiced shrinking. I had. Shrinking is a skill you can pass down without meaning to, which is why I stopped right there, on the spot. A TSA officer passed by with a clipped radio and a kind face that pretended not to notice. The officer's shoes clicked like a metronome, and then faded. I anchored my feet. I counted my breaths until I reached 10 and didn't feel like running. My daughter slid the sleeve deeper into the tote. Glossy paper on nylon, a soft, hungry sound. People pretended to scroll. The gate agent pretended she hadn't seen. The speaker above us cleared its throat twice. At 6:12 a.m., the screen flipped from on time to boarding group 2, my group. The blue bar moved like a river past me. I could have followed it and swallowed my pride, begged for my paper back. I'd done versions of that before. Apologize for asking where my money went. Apologize for asking for a plan. Kayla loved my apologies. They were her currency. They bought her space to do it again. The line advanced by 3 steps. I did not. Mom, she said, a different tone now, a private frequency people use to humiliate you sweetly. Don't make a scene. The scene was already made. It wore my name, but not my shape. I looked at the sleeve, then at her hand on the tote strap, veins raised, knuckles white. My heart clicked shut like a safe. That sound is quiet. It echoes anyway. A man across the aisle lifted his cup and almost spoke. He set it down. Silence is cheaper than courage at gates. I felt my mouth taste metal. You can taste panic if you've taught your body to expect it. I breathed until it tasted like pennies, then salt, then nothing. The gate agent called another group, cheerful as a weather app. The ticket wasn't a ticket anymore. It was proof. Months of planning, small economies, a promise to myself that didn't include a second chair at dinner. The first plan had been simple. 3 days at sea, sun that didn't ask me to fix it, a balcony wide enough for a paperback, and a glass of something cold. Sophia would have loved the tiny pools and the bright napkins. I imagined her feet featuring the ship's logo in sugar. Kayla had said she wouldn't come. You go, she'd said, prim and brave. You deserve it. She had kissed my cheek like a television daughter. I had believed the exact amount I wanted to. That was my part in the old dance. She wasn't supposed to be here. But entitlement moves faster than you think. It catches the earliest flight and gets to the gate before dawn. It knows your tote better than you do. It leaves you standing while a stranger's child bites a cracker into a star and laughs. I could hear the crunch, then my name, then nothing. Airports edit you down to the verbs you choose. Kayla, I said, and my voice didn't waver. I kept it low, the way a nurse speaks when your chest hurts. Give it back. 1 sentence. No history attached. She looked delighted at the word back. To her, everything I had was on its way to her anyway. Nothing could be back. because nothing, in her mind, had ever left. "You don't need it," she said, a slow smile, like this was a kindness. "I'm going with my friends. Sophia will stay with you. It's better this way." She said, "Better," as if the dictionary lived in her mouth. She said, "Stay," as if my time were a pantry she could inventory. She shifted her tote to her far shoulder and butterflied her fingers at me like I was already gone. The man with the coffee finally stood. "Hey," he said, and his voice fell apart at the edges. She turned the smile on him. He sat gate D14, exhaled a boarding chime. The sound cut his bravery in half. I didn't blame him. The world teaches bystanders to keep their shoes moving. I don't raise my voice often. It sounds like someone else when I do. I've learned to press my words flat and sign them like forms. The agent's keyboard clacked, neat as raindrops. I turned to the counter. "Excuse me," I said. "I need help." My daughter laughed so softly I almost missed it. The laugh smelled like perfume and victory. I carried my purse like a file. The agent lifted her lashes without lifting her head. "Good morning," she said in a tone that meant, "Let's not do this, not here." Behind me, Kayla shifted her weight like a dancer claiming center. I gave the agent my locator code. I gave her my name, even though she had it on the screen. I did not give her the story. Strangers can hold only so much of your life before they drop it. "Can I see your ticket?" she said, still gentle. "It's in my daughter's bag," I said. She took it from me. Gentle too. Her eyes moved to the tote, then to my face again. "We need the physical document to board you," she said. The sentence cut cleanly. No apology, no suggestion. A rule placed on a plate and slid across the counter. The fluorescent lights bleached it to bone. She waited, polite, hoping I'd pick up the plate and leave. My daughter remained a statue wrapped around a prize. The tote thumped twice against her hip to remind me who held the paper. I felt the image file in my mind. The sleeve, the hand, the word go. I felt myself arranging it, not for pity, but for clarity. Clarity is a new language when you've raised a person who profits when you get fuzzy. I swallowed once. It tasted like a door opening. "Then please call airport police," I said. "I'd like to report theft." I didn't whisper, "Please." I let it belong to the sentence like a hinge. The agent's face changed in a way only someone in grief practice would notice. A waitress notices when you switch from coffee to whiskey. A clerk notices when you switch from hope to paper. She pressed a button, not surprised. "Mom," Kayla said, soft again, warning shaped like care. "Let's not do this." I turned. "We are doing this," I said, not loud. The PA chime popped and held the sound like a breath underwater. The officer with the clipped radio reappeared, as if summoned by the word paper. He looked at my hands, then my eyes, then at the tote. He didn't need the scene narrated. He'd seen worse before sunrise. "Ma'am," he said, steady. I gave him my name. I gave him the sentence I'd practiced in my head. "My adult daughter removed my boarding documents without consent. I request assistance." It tasted like I belonged to myself. He nodded once, a small punctuation. He asked Kayla a question in the tone professionals use when they've heard every answer. She gave him the smile she saves for authority. It bounced off the blue shirt and rolled under a seat. "This is family," she said. "We're fine." The officer's pen clicked open. "I'm not," I said, and the pen wrote. The tote shifted again, heavier now. Weight tells on us when our mouths lie. He asked me if I wanted to step aside. I said no. I've stepped aside for years. I described the sleeve, the code, the payment, the brand of my wallet, the exact pocket. I did not cry. Tears are receipts you hand to people who make bonfires. He listened with the patience of someone who holds 1,000 tiny laws in his pocket and follows them because someone should. He asked for ID. I handed it over, calm, the way you hand over a key you paid for. Kayla rolled her shoulder and let the tote fall open a little, the blue sleeve winking like a fish. "It's my mother's," she said, as if that settled it in her favor. The officer waited. She took it out halfway, then tucked it back. Power performs before it loses. The agent kept her eyes on the screen and didn't blink for 3 lines of code. I admired her like you admire a bridge. Quiet, necessary, holding more than you think it can. People were watching now because the silence had shape. The stroller rolled back an inch. Someone's boarding pass printed with a soft purr. Somewhere, a coffee cup found a trash can with a hollow pop. The officer asked one more question about consent. Slower. Kayla's mouth opened to shape a new story. I made mine first. I paid for the cabin, I said. I did not gift it. I did not authorize use. My voice had the even press of a notary stamp. He wrote that down. He asked if I wished to file an incident. I did. He gave me a small white card, blank at the top, lines for details, lines for time, lines for case number. The card was ordinary. Ordinary paper is how you move mountains without sound. I wrote what mattered, and only that. I did not write the funeral casserole calendar, or the year I kept Kayla's phone alive because silence scared me more than bills. I did not write the night Sophia slept on my chest while Kayla texted a man who turned birthdays into IOUs. I wrote the facts and kept the poetry for later. Poetry is best when the truth is already signed. The agent glanced up and asked, very carefully, if I had secondary ID. I did. Kayla's laugh flickered and died. The officer asked Kayla to return the sleeve pending the report. She held it for a breath longer than courtesy allows. Then she slid it onto the counter, slow, like a reluctant apology. The paper met laminate. The room exhaled. The agent lifted the sleeve, checked the name, checked the code, checked the pieces of a person's promise to herself. She nodded. Boarding group 2, she said, still calm. You can go now. Kayla leaned in close enough that I could count the sugar crystals on her lip balm. Take it, she whispered, sweet poison. You'll pay for this. She wanted me to pick up an old script. Fear, then concession, then a gift wrapped in guilt. I left the line where it lay. Scripts are just rope if you keep pulling. I did not touch the sleeve. Not yet. No, I said, and meant it differently this time. The officer paused. The agent paused. Kayla didn't. Entitlement hates pauses. No, she repeated, and the sound wanted to turn into a laugh again. I let her have the echo. I looked at the blue and saw a different ship. The aisle behind me rustled like leaves. People pretended not to root for me. I could feel them want an ending that made sense. Endings that make sense are earned in pieces, not at counters. I asked the agent a new question, light as a postcard. If a boarding document is taken and an incident is filed, I said, what are my options? Her eyes brightened in the way that means there's a policy for this. Policies are wildflowers in concrete. You have to know where they grow and then not step on them. She explained like she was reading me a bedtime story she wished more people heard. Affidavits, reissues, name checks, holds. She explained the difference between panic and process. I listened the way you listen when someone hands you a map. I asked for a form. The officer nodded like a metronome keeps time while your hands learn a new song. Kayla's lip trembled and then held. I filled the affidavit in clean block letters. The card for the incident slid under my hand like a friend. The letters looked like mine. They were mine. I signed where the line asked me to. The agent took the form and placed it behind the counter, a small slide, a quiet vault. She told me the next step, the way you tell someone how to find light switches in a strange room. I thanked her. I meant it. I held the gratitude without letting it make me small. People started boarding again as if the pause had been a glitch, not a hinge. Kayla watched the sleeve leave the counter and disappear toward a back office like a sun going behind a clean building. You're ridiculous, she said, not loud enough to earn a glance. You're welcome to your opinion, I said, and found myself liking the sentence. It felt like shoes that fit. She laughed again and stepped back into the shadow of her own certainty. The officer handed me a small receipt with ink still damp. This number is yours, he said. If anyone asks whose morning this is, show them. He didn't say that last part. I heard it anyway. He touched the brim of nothing and left. The gate agent called another group with a voice that could have soothed thunderstorms. The stroller squeaked toward the jetway like hope on wheels. I did not board. I didn't even reach for the sleeve that wasn't there anymore. I stood in the space I'd finally purchased with sentences and breath. I counted 10 again, then 20, then stopped counting. Counting is for people trying to survive a moment. I wasn't. I was choosing one. The carpet stopped smelling like lemon and coffee. It smelled like air. I looked at my daughter and saw her clearly, without the noise of the gate. When you see clearly, you stop bargaining with fog. She waited for my apology the way a plant waits for rain. It didn't come. She shifted her toad and checked her phone as if it would hand her a different mother. It didn't. My phone buzzed once in my bag. A message from Sophia. Heart and anchor emoji. Have fun, Nana. I felt my mouth soften and then hold. I typed back a heart, then tucked the phone away. Kayla didn't see the screen. She never does when the attention isn't hers. I stepped out of the line and let the boarding river pass. You'd think stepping out would feel like loss. It felt like a lane opening. It felt like a car moving into clear road while the rain lightens. I walked to the window and watched a luggage cart turn in a circle too tight for the driver's patience. The plane's wing cut a clean edge into a slow gray sky. I pressed 2 fingers to my pulse and felt it answer. The answer was enough for now. The next step would need a pen. The next step would need my full voice. Behind me, Kayla told someone on the phone that everything was fine. The word fine frayed on the second letter. People said goodbye to the terminal and hello to the cabin without looking back. The PA swallowed another group number. I let the sound pass through me. I let the sound keep going. I traced the shape of the morning with my eyes until it looked like a map I could fold in half and put away. I left the gate without rushing. The corridor was long and smelled like air conditioning and possibility. My shoes found a rhythm that matched the steady hum of the vents. The light on the floor moved as if someone had opened a door far away. Maybe they had. I thought about coffee without lemon cleaner. I thought about paper without pleading. I thought about a girl with an anchor emoji who deserved a future that didn't depend on my silence. At the top of the escalator, I turned once and looked back at D14. Kayla was still talking, her hand drawing pictures in the air for a listener who wouldn't see them. The boarding sign flipped 1 line closer to departure. The sound it made was final and small. I didn't flinch. I stepped onto the escalator and let it carry me, smooth as forgiveness, firm as a promise. I had work to do, and it would be quiet. Quiet is louder when the door shuts gently. The moving handrail felt like a pulse under my palm. I imagined a different morning, not here, not watched, not measured by chimes. I imagined a desk, a notary stamp, a kind woman with a bun and a serious smile. I imagined a form with a Section 7 that had waited a year for ink. I imagined a ship's horn in the distance, and a child's laugh closer than that. I let the escalator deliver me to the level where coffee tastes like coffee. The floor welcomed me like a decision finally kept. Outside the window, a plane began to roll. It glided along the painted lines, as if the morning were designed just for it. I smiled for the first time since the paper rasped. The smile wasn't for the plane or the people taking off. It was for the part of me that had finally sat in the pilot's seat of her own life. I walked toward the sign that said ground transportation and felt the day rearrange itself around a new center. The center held, steady as a wheel on dry pavement, ready for the next turn. I left the terminal for air that didn't hum like shame. The morning felt larger outside, even with jet fuel in it. My phone warmed my palm like a small, obedient engine. I opened the banking app and scrolled backward through months. Receipts are diaries that don't care about feelings, only facts. The transfers marched neat as soldiers in a photo. March 1st Saturday there, like a bright pin on a map. Rent for Kayla, $1,850. Memo, bridge month, we'll talk. Phone bill, $220. Memo, family plan, just for now. Just for now lasts longer when nobody draws a line. I screenshotted the last 6 months and sent them to myself. Subject line, paper before peace. I wanted the phrase to stick. The subject looked stern in my inbox, like a principal's stare. I saved the images in a folder named Ledger. Naming things is the first small ownership you take back. I opened our text thread and watched the tone shift. At first, apologies. Later, instructions disguised as kindness. A heart emoji after each demand, like sugar over vinegar. 2 words looped like a chorus in a cheap song. Last time, she typed, and the next ask proved otherwise. I bookmarked the string where she claimed the cruise. Her line was clean, like a blade honed by practice. This is mine by right. You'll rest better if I go. Right is a word that swells when left unmeasured. I measured it with statements, not opinions, not memories. I called the cruise line from a bench in the shade. The hold music smiled at me without meaning it. A woman answered with a voice built for emergencies. "Muriella," she said, and kindness climbed into the call. Kindness works best when it sits beside a policy. I gave her my reservation number and kept my breath even. I described the incident without embroidery or theater. "Boarding document removed without consent," I said slowly. I gave her the airport case number I'd been assigned. Her keyboard made a dry meadow sound, clean and steady. "There is a window," she said after a measured pause. "Affidavit for loss, reissue possible, name unchanged." She listed the pieces I would need in a firm order. A sworn statement, ID, proof of payment, police report. The list made a path that felt like pavement underfoot. "There is a fee," she added, tone still warm, exact. $150 to reissue if documentation matches. Fees sound heavy when you're already carrying a family. I pictured Sophia's anchor emoji and said, "Understood." We do what is necessary when the necessary is clear. "Do you want to add a minor to the cabin?" Her question landed like a hand offered in a storm. I said yes before fear could interrupt with old scripts. She sent a secure link for the consent and passport. Digital forms bloom fast when the purpose has roots. I walked to my car and sat in the quiet interior. The dashboard glow didn't judge. It simply lit the tasks. I filled the affidavit in block letters that did not shake. Muriella stayed on while I typed, a patient metronome. Patience is a bridge you cross with paperwork and breath. When we finished, she repeated each item back to me. Her tone wasn't sweet. It was exact, which felt safer. Affidavit received. Reissue under review. Hold is placed. The word hold clicked into the morning like a gear. I thanked her and wrote ref, Muriella/reissue pending. The next number I dialed belonged to my credit union. A bell answered me, then a human with a Monday voice. I asked to confirm the status of my living trust. My husband and I had drafted it in practical grief. Paper can be love when the living is messy and long. The banker read the clauses with the care they deserved. Section 7B waited there like a door I hadn't tried. Conditional gifts tied to conduct, not to pleading. Funds can be a lever if the fulcrum is steady enough. I scheduled a walk-in and took down the notary hours. On the way, my mind tried to wander into pity. Pity is a soft couch that eats time and spines. I kept it moving with numbers and proper nouns. Street names, branch hours, account types, routing suffix. Small stones across a stream carry you cleanly over. I pulled into the lot and watched a sparrow argue. The bird won quickly. The crumbs surrendered without drama. Inside, a guard nodded as if boundaries were normal here. The air smelled like plastic covers and new envelopes. I asked for Mrs. Duarte because steadiness has a name. She wore a bun and efficient glasses and a winterless smile. Her stamp lived beside a small dish of paper clips. "I need to update protective language," I said simply. I showed her Section 7B and what it allowed. We read it together until it felt like a rail under a palm. "Education trust for Sophia," I said, clear and slow. "Funds move now, conditions written for Kayla with dates." We drafted the paragraph in human words, not thorns. Apology in writing. 1 counseling intake. 6 months decent. Decent is measurable when you agree on shapes and sounds. Regardless of the mother's choices, the child's future holds. That line mattered to me like light matters to plants. We wrote it in, firm, and bolded the phrase regardless. I initialed each margin, a small drumbeat of ownership. The stamp thumped the page with a sound like certainty. The transfer number looked startling in healthy daylight. $25,000 slid into the education trust, sealed. It wasn't a weapon, it was a lock on a tiny door. A lock can be mercy when chaos keeps stealing sleep. I breathed out and felt the exhale reach the bottom. "Anything else?" Mrs. Duarte asked in that square way. Yes, I said, and placed a letter on the blotter. It was a boundary statement with no salt or smoke. No sarcasm, no history lesson, no theatrical finale. Just terms, dates, and the path to a future still open. I'll notarize this for delivery, she said, stamping once. Ink bled slightly, like a small, harmless wound. We copied the letter and added a service sheet. Delivery would be calm and public, as policies prefer. Clarity travels best when it is properly addressed. Back in the car, the AC hissed like a steady companion. I opened my email and found Mariella's confirmation. Reissue pending, hold in place, bring ID to port. The subject line included the ship like a promise. Promises grow when you water them with follow-through. A text from Kayla blinked across the glass. Don't you dare embarrass me. Keep Sophia tonight. She decorates threats with conveniences for herself. I did not reply. Silence can be a boundary too. Silence lets paperwork walk without tripping on arguments. I drove to the airport police substation for one more page. The fluorescent hum welcomed me like an old, odd friend. A sergeant at the counter recognized my morning in my eyes. He pulled the incident and printed the number cleanly. MIA 21,437 gleamed on the paper like a small badge. CTV request goes in this tray, he said, unfussy. He slid a form across with 2 lines highlighted. Time window, location, relation to parties, requested scope. I wrote gate D14, my name, and the simple truth. Simple truths survive better when rooms fill with noise. He stamped the request and nodded like a closure. Footage retention is short, he said in a neutral tone. Short is long enough if you move your feet now. I thanked him, and the thanks didn't feel small. Some jobs deserve gratitude whispering instead of applause. Outside, the heat pressed its flat hand on my shoulder. I carried the packet to the car like a careful lunch. Inside the cabin, the steering wheel was honest and warm. Honesty is useful when you're building a different life. I put the packet where I put my purse, within reach. My phone hummed again. Another message, longer, theatrical. Family money is community money. We already voted. My hands stayed still on the wheel for 5 counts. Votes require ballots, not hunger dressed as consensus. I let the message sit without oxygen and die on its own. I drove to Kayla's apartment and did not park. I watched from the curb while she hurried down. She held a tote that had carried my morning away. I thought about tapping the horn and didn't. Noise gratifies the wrong currency when stakes are real. Sophia saw me and waved like Dawn in a small dress. Her hair bounced. Her smile arrived before her feet did. Kayla took the wave as approval that wasn't hers. I lowered my window and kept my voice level. I'll pick her up later, I said, steady as rail. Kayla tilted her head in that private, warning way. Don't push me, she murmured, just loud enough. Pressure looks like control when you're used to winning. I met her eyes without heat, without invitations. I won't, I said. The paper will. The wind carried it. On the way home, I stopped for cheap, decent notebooks. I labeled 1 calls and 1 receipts and 1 boundaries. I wrote names, numbers, stamps, fees, and voices. I wrote the way you pack a suitcase for a long trip. Careful, layered, no souvenirs of chaos, only what is needed. At my kitchen table, light spread like a clean sheet. I laid the documents edge to edge, careful and square. Case number in the top left, trust paragraph below it. Affidavit copies, Mariella's email, the notarized letter. A map that could be followed by anyone who had to. I allowed 2 memories, short and honest as receipts. The day Kayla called from a dorm, she never finished. I paid and called it love and told nobody the cost. The night she cried after Sophia's fever touched on. I held the child. Kayla took a bath. My chest was an engine. The memories were not evidence, they were weather. Weather passes. Paper remains. The stack breathed evenly. I put everything into a slim, boring accordion folder. Boring is beautiful when you've lived with adrenaline. I slid the folder into my tote like a calm heartbeat. I dialed a counseling center and asked for an intake. I asked for 2 options and wrote down both names. I underlined Saturday hours because life is busy. Requirements must be possible, or they become traps. Traps pretend to teach. They only repeat the wound. The printer coughed out 1 more page for the morning. It was the delivery sheet for tomorrow's terminal visit. I read my boundary letter once more for leaks. No contempt, no theatrical thunder, no extra adjectives. A clean door, a small lock, a window for light and return. I checked the clock and let the rest of the day breathe. No more timestamps, just ordinary hours doing their job. I washed 2 dishes and felt them clink like little affirmations. I made tea that tasted like leaves and water, nothing else. I sat with the quiet and let it practice staying. The phone lit again, hungry for a reaction it could spend. I turned it face down and drafted an email to myself. Subject: tomorrow's order of steps / Port of Miami. List: ID, affidavit copy, case sheet, trust letter, delivery set. I added sunscreen and smiled at the future in that word. There was a time I'd narrate my life to Kayla. I'd explain the budget and ask for a plan in return. She'd call it criticism, and the plan turned into smoke. Now I narrated to paper, and paper didn't flinch. It absorbed my choices and reflected them without angle. At dusk, I drove a short loop to keep my thoughts moving. The road unspooled. The vents exhaled a steady hush. Headlights braided past, like people keeping separate lanes. The skyline held no opinion, it held its own weight. Inside that quiet, a plan finished fitting into place. Before sleep, I printed Sophia's favorite photo. She is on a swing, mid-air, mid-laugh, midsummer. I slid the photo into the folder's last pocket. Justice should remember who it is for and why. I turned off the lamp and let the room close gently. The packet lay ready near the door, unremarkable and firm. It watched the dark the way good work watches doubt. I didn't rehearse speeches. Speeches waste oxygen and time. I rehearsed the steps, the order, the names, the stamps. I fell asleep before I reached the last period. In the quiet hour before light, a small fear knocked. It asked me if I wanted to make it all go away. I let it speak, and then I gave it nothing back. No fuel, no apology, no barter, no soft promise. It left because silence starves fear faster than anger does. I woke to a street that belonged to no one's temper. The kettle clicked and sang in a simple, ordinary key. I packed my tote and checked the folder twice. The zipper closed with a sound I wanted to remember. It sounded like a line drawing itself without shaking. The phone stayed on the counter while I tied my shoes. If it begged for attention, I didn't hear it plead. I locked the door and felt the lock agree with me. Boundary is a sound you can learn to trust again. I stepped into the hall, lighter than the number said. The elevator breathed me down to the day's next room. The plan rode beside me, quiet and well-fed and clear. I didn't know how she would howl when paper spoke. I knew how I would answer, calmly, with dates and names. I pressed the lobby button and watched the floor count down. The port woke like a beast that loves routine. Gulls stitched the sky with their rough thread. Diesel and sunscreen made a strange, honest perfume. My tote rode high on my shoulder, light but decisive. Pavement shimmered as if it had a memory of storms. At 9:05 a.m., Port of Miami, the horn rolled across water. The sound vibrated the ribs and paired the morning clean. I stood in the shade line and breathed like paper breathes. A family argued about hats, a couple rehearsed joy. I practiced quiet, which is different than silence. The terminal swallowed us with the grace of a machine. Escalators hummed. The handrail pulsed beneath my palm. I pictured the folder resting against my side, awake. Edges squared, tabs labeled, nothing loose, nothing soft. One page was a boundary, one page was a bridge. A woman with a badge smiled with her whole attention. "Good morning," she said, and meant the first half. I offered my ID, the affidavit, the incident sheet. I said the case number once, steady and exact. MIA 21,437, fit the air like a key fits a lock. Her keyboard clicked like rain, finding old gutters. She nodded at the screen with a nurse's certainty. Affidavit received, she said. Hold was placed yesterday. She glanced at me with a small approval that felt earned. Let's complete the reissue and add your minor. Muriella stepped in from a side desk like a lighthouse. Her hair was pinned high. Her tone carried ballast. We spoke, she said, and her smile was practical. We reviewed the line items without ornament or size. Reissue fee, $150. Card ran. The printer answered cleanly. She checked names against the passport and the police report. I added Sophia as a minor, consent already uploaded. The system blinked, considered, then laid down a path. Ref #PO 8824, printed on the corner like a small oath. Paper felt heavier in the hand now that it belonged. While the ink dried, my phone buzzed once in my tote. A voicemail from the airport police sat there, waiting. I stepped aside and listened with my back to a column. The sergeant's voice had breakfast grit and plain edges. He said the footage had been reviewed within the window. He spoke like weather. No drama, just facts that move ships. Cameras caught the approach, the glance, the body angle. 2 women rehearsed the motion by the newsstand first. They laughed when the sleeve slid clean the second time. One wore a hat, one pressed a phone against her cheek. The plan was to flip the cabin to a cousin for cash. Messages on a second phone showed amounts and timing. My March bridge money had edged a deposit on a trip. Girls, weekend, hotel wristbands, captions about, finally me. My breath held, then organized itself without breaking. The sergeant's tone did not change when he said the rest. He would log the additional details and add to the file. He said, cooperation appreciated, like a sentence in training. He did not need me to be angry to do his job. Anger would not add a single frame to a single clip. I ended the call and felt the floor resolve to level. Plans are cruel when they depend on someone else shrinking. I had stopped shrinking at a gate before sunrise. The folder tapped my side, reminding me of its work. Work likes to be done without commentary, I obliged. Muriella waved me back with a finger that knew the dance. She slid the reissued packet across with both hands. Her eyes held mine just long enough for the message. You're set, her look said. Stay on the paved parts. I thanked her in the tone you save for professionals. We completed the miner's boarding photo with a wide smile. Sophia's anchor bracelet flashed in the picture from last summer. Mariella noticed and let the soft joy pass without theft. Good staff know when happiness isn't theirs to manage. She slipped a small brochure in the sleeve for kids, clubs. I moved to a quieter alcove and opened the last envelope. The notarized boundary letter waited in exact phrases. No adjectives trying to win, no old winters inside. Just conditions, dates, outcomes, and a door left small. Apology in writing, 1 counseling intake, 6 months decent. I read the paragraph about the trust again, out loud. $25,000 now in an education account for Sophia, regardless. Regardless had muscle here, it meant storms broke elsewhere. Kayla had no keys in this lock. She had choices instead. Choices weigh less when they stop being weapons. A text arrived, sharp and performative on the glass. Where are you? Don't forget who raised you. Answer me. History loves to pretend it holds receipts on you. History hates when you audit it with new math. I put the phone face down and studied my handwriting. I asked for a guest services witness for the delivery. A supervisor with a silver pin joined with calm eyes. He had the posture of a person who sees storms and stands. He read the service sheet like it was a map of traffic. He nodded once. We'll observe without adding heat. Kayla appeared like a stage direction I didn't write. Sunglasses, perfect lipstick, righteousness at the corners. Behind her, a cousin trailed hope like a fresh mistake. They scanned for me with the appetite of hunters. I stayed still and let them find what they came to find. Her smile arrived before her words, like lighting before rain. Finally, she said, and the syllables collected applause. She reached for my sleeve as if the morning belonged to her. The supervisor took half a step, professional and polite. He did not touch her. He didn't need to. Presence is a tool. I held the sleeve with 2 fingers and a steady wrist. I wasn't bait. I wasn't a scene. I was a line in ink. I handed her the notarized letter instead of an object. Her hand closed on paper that did not bend to mood. She looked down and saw her name behave like a mirror. 3 quotes belong here, and only 3. "You can't do this," she said, but softer than the port. "I already did," I said, and the words didn't echo. The supervisor added 1 measured line, "Delivery observed." Kayla read. Her mouth shaped a list of old tools. The tools fell around her like wrenches with no bolts. She saw Section 7B translated into our actual lives. She saw the counseling intake written like a street address. She saw "regardless" bolded near her child's name. She looked for a trap and found a door instead. A small door swings when you're ready, not when you're loud. She pressed the top of the paper as if it might blur. Ink doesn't blur when you've dried it with whole lungs. She tried to hand it back. The supervisor declined with his eyes. Cousin Courage swelled 2 sizes and then deflated. He pretended to read. He pretended not to be part. Mariella passed behind us with a stack of boarding cards. Her work did not wobble to accommodate our weather. Ships leave on time. That's how oceans stay honest. I explained the letter once, like directions to a clinic. My voice stayed low and rested inside my chest. Funds moved, education protected, conditions are clear. No sermon, no needle, no story about casseroles. Just dates and steps and the place to put a signature. She asked who would watch me now that I was alone. Alone is a story people tell about women who refuse scripts. I watched my own breath travel and return, intact. I watched gulls thread the glare and not apologize. I watched a child with a sparkly backpack hop in place. Kayla flinched at the line about no abuse for 6 months. She tried to redefine abuse as critique that hurts her feelings. The supervisor's eyebrows didn't move, which helped the room. I clarified gently, no threats, no financial coercion, no shame. Definitions make small fires starve before they spread. Her second tactic arrived in a prettier dress. 12 months, she said, bargaining like a mall on payday. I simplified until the math couldn't be stretched thin. 6, I said, written apology, 1 intake, then we talk. Talk is a word that grows only where trust has shade. She fished for social consent with a practiced cast. Family money is family, she said to no one. The supervisor's silence was a long hallway with doors. Mariella's shoes ticked a rhythm that kept us on tempo. I let the sentence die in air that didn't sponsor it. I handed Kayla the service copy and kept mine signed. She held it like it might sprout teeth if she blinked. Teeth are only metaphors when you stop letting them bite. She folded the paper too carefully to call it anger. She put it in the tote where the blue sleeve had once lived. We stepped to the side for other passengers to pass. Wheels hummed, children thrilled, cameras pretended to flatter. Life continued without our theater needing to headline it. That truth landed gentle and powerful at the same time. I felt it anchor low, where decisions sit and stay. I spoke one more time, quiet, equal, unsentimental. The education trust is locked for Sophia, I said. You cannot unlock it by fighting me, only by choosing. The word choosing gave the morning a spine it respected. I did not wait for her reply because the reply wasn't for me. I turned to the supervisor and thanked him once. He gave that small nod professionals use as punctuation. He made a tiny note on his clipboard, neutral as the tide. Witnesses hold space for outcomes without owning them. It's a clean calling when you do it right. We moved to security, the line braided and breathed. Someone laughed at a joke that didn't travel far. I placed my tote on the belt, the folder on top. Plastic bins slid, metal whispered, shoes paused and resumed. The scanner blinked green like a small, reliable lighthouse. At the photo station, they asked Sophia to step closer. Her picture from last summer already lived in the system. The crew member softened his tone as if the image were present. He handed me the packet for stateroom keys and maps. Keys sat on the cardstock like quiet instruments. Before boarding, I sat on a bench and opened the map. Not to study decks, but to steady my hands on something neutral. Neutral helps when adrenaline wants a curtain call. I wrote deliver copy to Kayla's email in my notebook. I wrote send counseling options and apology path next. My phone buzzed again, a longer message arriving in pieces. Accusations wore their usual lipstick and aimed for the throat. I let the pieces collect and fall without picking them up. Phones can be bait. The hook is attention you could spend elsewhere. I spent mine on a girl who likes anchors and bright napkins. The ship called again with a horn that didn't ask for permission. People clapped like the ocean had done something clever. I stood, because standing is a commitment the body understands. I joined the lane with my packet and my breath and my name. The carpet muffled us as if protecting a sacred room. Kayla moved to intercept, sunglasses like a mask that forgot a face. She placed her palm flat on the sleeve and waited for me to plead. Pleading is a language I don't speak anymore. I set my hand beside hers and didn't move it an inch. The supervisor's presence turned heat into steam that went nowhere. Her voice tried one last instrument, pity, played in minor key. The notes were familiar, practiced, unexpectedly small today. I heard the structure, and not the story writing on it. Structure breaks when a pillar is replaced with steel. I had replaced it yesterday while the sun was still thin. We stood like that for a breath, and then two. She removed her hand first because performance needs an audience. I didn't provide an audience, I provided a plan. Plans are terrible at applause. That is why they work. I stepped forward when the lane moved and didn't look back. At the gangway, a breeze found the back of my neck. It felt like a clean eraser had visited the morning. I placed the packet on the scanner and waited for the beep. It arrived, bright and ordinary like most important sounds. Behind me, luggage wheels murmured like diplomacy done right. On deck, the air widened and forgot to be stale. The city stood in its own business and watched us leave. I checked the time without naming it out loud. One time marker is enough when the rest is muscle memory. We crossed a seam of shade into an honest light. I found a quiet table near a stack of life vests. Orange foam glowed like fruit in a warehouse. I opened my notebook and wrote the last two steps. Email Kayla PDFs, log delivery, calm, no heat. I underlined calm because habits love to relapse. My phone vibrated with a call I didn't owe the hour. I declined gently and sent the documents with a subject. Boundary letter, served/witnessed, plus trust notice, plus counseling options. No extra lines, no baited hooks, no rain clouds. I CC'd myself and Mrs. Duarte, receipts like constellations. I took a breath and let the ship's small sway teach balance. Balance isn't a heroic pose, it's knees that know. Below us, motors arranged water into temporary decisions. They cut a path that closed behind without apology. The wake wrote a lesson you can only read moving forward. A crew member offered water and a smile unbothered by drama. I drank because bodies deserve kindness after paperwork. I imagined Sophia pointing at seagulls and naming them. I imagined her laugh arriving like a permission slip. Permission slips can be self-signed when you grow up. I checked the folder one last time, more habit than need. Everything sat where I had placed it, unfussed and ready. The trust notice tucked into a transparent sleeve like a jewel. The affidavit stamp held steady like a low drum. Ref hashtag PO8824 shone small and perfect in the corner. The ship gave a softer horn, more goodbye than order. Confetti thoughts fell and dissolved before they hit worry. I leaned back and let my shoulders agree with my spine. Agreement is health when you've lived on argument. I let the sun find my cheek and didn't apologize for warmth. Somewhere behind, a phone would chew on our morning. Someone would draft a group chat about betrayal and cash. Let them. Audiences fade when the lead stops performing. I had changed genres. The script had no part for ransom. It had sections, signatures, and a door that opened inward. I held the reissued packet with 2 fingers and a future. The paper felt cool, like a well-kept key. I set it down and looked at the shoreline getting smaller. Small isn't always loss. Sometimes it's simply distance. Distance is the room truth needs to stand up and walk. By nightfall, the ship wore lights like measured breath. Sophia's laugh found me before her feet did. She ran across the deck with an anchor bracelet flashing. Her hair smelled like pool salt and hotel shampoo. Children learn joy fast when rooms feel safe. We watched the shoreline fold itself into smaller shapes. Miami held its own weight without reaching for mine. Sophia pressed her cheek to my arm and sighed. "Tomorrow, can we eat pancakes for dinner?" she asked. "Tomorrow we can," I said, and meant it plainly. I checked my phone without letting it take the sky. One message from Kayla, short as a flinch. "I got your email," she wrote, nothing else attached. No apology, not yet, just the air before weather. Weather announces itself, paper makes its own climate. I removed her from the last shared account that remained. A small click, a gray toggle, a quiet door. My ledger breathed easier with each precise subtraction. Boundaries are math that keeps the lights honest. I let the satisfaction pass without turning it into pride. Sophia asked if her mom was mad at me. Children taste tension like adults taste metal. "She's mad at the rules," I said, calm as a bridge. "But rules can be a way home when you're lost." She nodded, accepting the map without needing every street. We walked past the kids' club window and waved. A counselor shaped balloons into animals that forgave everything. Sophia hesitated and then chose the dragon that smiled. Choosing is a muscle that grows when shame isn't coaching it. I signed her in with a pen that didn't wobble. The ocean had a steady grammar I could finally read. Engines wrote sentences. The wake dotted the ends. I sat near a rail and opened my notebook. I wrote the word ongoing and underlined it twice. Justice isn't an event. It's clean maintenance and rest. I drafted a message I would send in the morning. It held counseling options, addresses, hours, and sliding scale. It held the apology path exactly as the letter promised. It held no adjectives sharp enough to draw blood. Sharp words attract attention you would rather spend elsewhere. I will not punish her with silence, only with clarity. Clarity allows return without erasing the cost. The trust stays locked for Sophia without negotiation. Love behaves better when the locks do their job. Locks are not cages. They are well-timed commas. I thought about the woman I had been last winter. She apologized with her wallet and fed fires oxygen. Today I budgeted oxygen like a professional diver. Surface, when the gauge reads safe, rest, descend again. You can learn calm even in seas that once scared you. A couple nearby argued softly about dinner times. Their voices had no knives, they only had needs. I let the ordinary sound rinse the day's edges. Ordinary deserves feasts after you quit adrenaline. Peace is never loud, it simply occupies its seat. My phone buzzed with an email from Mrs. Duarte. Delivery logged, copies filed, acknowledgement received. It read, "Receipts make the future spine straighter than speeches. Speeches end. Spines hold the next hour upright." I closed the mail and felt my shoulders fall into place. Kayla would test the perimeter. People do when maps change. She would push on words and hunt for weak boards. She would try charm, then blame, then weather again. Weather passes when houses are built to code. Mine is, now. It passed inspection. It keeps rain out. Sophia returned with a paper crown and a grin. She climbed into my lap like the day owed us nothing. "Do pirates ever say sorry?" she asked, counting gems. "Good ones do," I said, and she counted slower. She tucked the crown into my tote beside the folder. We watched a line of buoys blink toward open water. Green, then black, then green again like a promise. Signals tell you when to move and when to wait. I had mistaken sirens for signals too many times. Now I let only steady lights decide my speed. Later, after Sophia slept with one shoe off, I wrote a small paragraph for myself alone. It thanked the officer who didn't need my fury. It thanked the clerk who placed policy like seed. It thanked the part of me that chose pavement over noise. Morning would arrive with emails and little tests. I would answer each with dates, names, and one sentence. Apology in writing, 1 intake, 6 months decent. Language you can hand to a stranger and be understood. Language that does not require a mother to vanish herself. I messaged a locksmith about my front door. I messaged a landlord about the copy of a key. I scheduled a meeting about a part-time position. Not because I am short of money, but for posture. Work builds a rhythm that drowns out old choreography. On deck, someone played a song too sweet for night. The wind edited it down to a kinder key. I leaned into the railing and felt steel keep faith. Steel doesn't ask who deserves support. It supports. I decided to be more steel than song for a while. A final message arrived from Kayla, then nothing. "I'll think about it," she wrote, which is a beginning. Beginnings resent pressure. They grow better with air. I typed only, "The path is there whenever you're ready." I did not send a heart. Hearts can be misunderstood. Sophia stirred and reached for my wrist in sleep. Her fingers closed exactly where the pulse talks. I kept still and let that small weight instruct me. Keep the path clear, keep the door small and honest. Keep the ledger tidy, keep the tea simple and hot. When we dock, I'll return to a quieter apartment. New lock, fewer alerts. A fridge with bright fruit. I will keep 3 notebooks and a folder that hums. I will drive at dusk with the radio low and clean. The road will not argue. It will only open. Rain might come, thin and forgiving across the hood. Wipers will drag once, then rest between intervals. A light will turn green at a small intersection I love. I'll breathe and take it without asking permission. If you felt that green, like, comment, and share, then ride with me by subscribing.